Car Guy here. Got like a little something for you. Not a complete like I'm used to doing, because to be honest, it's Memorial Day and I don't really feel like being here, but it's the only day I have this week to do this. So I'm not going to show you all of this, don't be mad, but I am taking a cradle out of this Pontiac, so I'll show you the coolest part, which is where I'm actually dropping the cradle out and how I did it. So whenever you're doing things like dropping subframes out, it's a good idea to have this tool. It was less expensive than I thought it was, but if you do, like, say a transmission or something like that, you're gonna need something like this that hooks onto that hook right there to hold the engine and transmission in place. It's pretty sturdy. I've actually got the cradle dropped right now. So what I've done is there's an ABS unit up in here that you just take one bolt out of and you can move the ABS unit out of the way. There's two lines that go on the power steering rack that need to be removed. And then there's various plastic clips and things that also need to be addressed when you do this. I've got two floor jacks with blocks of wood under here, and I supported it, and there's 4 fasteners around the outside, actually 6. There's 2 smaller fasteners in the back. I'll show you where those fasteners are when we get this out. But what I've done is I've just used both of these jacks to drop this down. Run it out. No worries. See, you got tons more room to work under here now. I just disconnected the lower ball joints and the tie rod ends. This is not my doing. Somebody messed up the ABS sensor and its harness. But all I did here for these engine mounts is I just took the fasteners out and let it hang. Now, this is still held up by 2 engine mounts. You've got this one here and another one on the other side. So it's not hypercritical, but this front mount here and the rear mount back here are what supports it laterally. And this is the transmission. This is the oil pan for the engine, all kind of mushed together. And this, the connection for the power steering rack to the steering column. There's one bolt that goes through here that needs to be removed in order to get that disconnected. Then there's a bunch of clips that hold these harnesses on the lower control arms, and then a bunch of clips for this, which I'm really not sure what this is. Looks like it goes to the ABS, probably a brake line. So why am I doing this? Well, I put a power steering rack in this car not long ago, and as you can see, it's broken right off of its mounts right here. So you couldn't steer this car at all. And you can see where it broke loose here and hollowed out this. But also, more importantly, this is the real culprit here. That weld came loose that holds the power steering rack on, so whenever you tried to steer the car, the thing would go everywhere. Kind of sucks, really. It's just these 2 pieces of metal here caused all this trouble. So this is my old assembly here on the floor, and over here is my new assembly. You may notice that this has steel control arms, whereas the Pontiac has aluminum. Apparently this goes by lots of different names that I've heard. I've heard K-frame, I've heard subframe, I've heard lots of different things. This is where that ABS goes. You just take this nut off, and it's slid into the back here, so you pry up, get it off that nut, and you can slide it out of there. Here's a better look at the unit. This right over on this side is what slides in and out. And these are those plastic clips I told you about. I got this from a salvage yard. Apparently it's good for more than just one type of car. It is General Motors. They're very good about having one template that they put a bunch of different, or one platform that they put a bunch of different cars on. Could be a Buick, Pontiac, Chevrolet, all using the same part, which is nice because they're readily available. But I think it would have been nicer if this was a little more stout instead of just a piece that is basically just bent up to house the power steering rack. This is all that holds your power steering rack in. That's not a whole lot. It'd be nice if it was reinforced, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I've got a new power steering rack to install, and maybe I'll bring it back as I do the installation. I'm just gonna use the 2 floor jacks again with the 4x4s in between the subframe. Like I said, lots of people call it different things. I've heard it called a K-frame, a subframe, whatever. This thing. Gonna get my power steering rack and everything reinstalled, and then I can park it up under the car, slowly jack it up, get it lined up as much as I can. What you want to do is you want to get all your bolts started before you run everything down. You don't want to run something down. Just get the thread started, you know, just enough threads to hold it up in there. And then, once you've got everything started, then you run stuff down. That's how it's done. Here's a tip. When you go to replace something like a power steering rack, you're going to have to do an alignment no matter what when you're done. But what you can do is get it close. If you count the number of threads to the back of the nut before you take the old tie rod end off and put it on the new one. I think I showed you this in the Jeep video, but I just go in the grooves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 to the back of the nut. Now I'll take the end off. I've already broken it loose before I ever took it off the car. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I nailed that perfectly. Now I'll just put tie rod end back on. And we're pretty much ready to stick it back up on the car. Alright, the little Pontiac went away. Had a little trouble with air in the system, which in my experience is kind of common with that car, so it may take a few days for that whiny noise to go away. The trick is to turn the wheel all the way in one direction and hold it at full lock, and then turn it all the way in the other direction and hold it full lock. That will make sure that all the fluid rushes through. Let it sit and idle for a period of time, and then shut it off and let it sit and just sit. And I usually take the cap off the power steering reservoir just so that I can look to see if the bubbles are gone when I go back and check it. And you may have to go through that process for a couple of days before it settles out. Just kind of par for the course for that particular car and that particular vehicle. But yes, at least it does steer now. With that rack not attached to that subframe, it was just flopping all over the place. It wasn't moving wheels at all. Kind of a scary prospect. All better now. I'm Eric the Car Guy. Always visit me, or you can always visit me, at EricTheCarGuy.com. Thanks to all subscribers, past, present, and future. I know this one was kind of short, but it gave you some idea of how to do it, at least the hardest part. The rest is really just taking out the fasteners and putting them back in. That's all it really is. Anyway, stay dirty.